What's going on, guys, and welcome to the Underdog's Edge podcast. And my name is Blake Hawkins, and you're joining me here on the Underdog's Edge, episode number 7. And I'm excited to be able to bring this content and value to you. And I hope you're able to get value from this and make something happen and start taking action towards your goals and dreams. If you're just now tuning in to this podcast, this is the Underdog's Edge podcast. We go over career, confidence, and achievement. Those 3 areas of life we're going to focus on this podcast. We're going to be going over so many different topics, so many different discussion points. And guys, this is something that this is not designed to be just theory or philosophy. This is designed where you can actually start taking action and making things happen in your life, in your career, in your business, on your journey. And my goal is for you to be able to extract some golden nuggets from each podcast, even if it's just one thing that you can take and implement and take action right now. That is my goal for you. And that is the whole intention of this podcast. And we're going to be going over habit stacking. Habit stacking. What is habit stacking? First off, let's just figure out what the hell is a habit. So guys, I'm not a psychology expert, but I've studied a lot of psychology just because I'm in business and entrepreneurship. So it's always good to have a little bit of that understanding. From what the experts say, and I am not pretending to be an expert in psychology, but I am a messenger. And from what they say, 90% of our day is ruled by our unconscious. Our unconscious mind rules 90% of our day. What is our unconscious? From what I understand and what I gather, it's built on habits and patterns, okay? So certain patterns of thinking, certain habits of action, certain habits of behavior. 90% of our day is ruled by these unconscious habits and patterns. Now, this is not a bad thing. This is a good thing because we have this to make our life a lot easier so we can kind of run on programs that make sense for us, that keeps a consistent flow in our lives. It keeps a consistent, pattern and energy and a focus for our lives. Otherwise, we would just be waking up every single day on a blank slate, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. So this is actually designed to be in our favor, but oftentimes, like all of us, because we're human beings, it gets used against us, right? And so over this podcast, we're going to go over habit stacking and how we can utilize this way of the way our brain works and use it strategically in our favor versus it being used against us. So now that we've identified that 90% of our day is run and ruled by our unconscious mind, which is built on habits and patterns, now let's kind of get into how we can actually use this in our favor. So for me, I have identified a habit as this. This is my definition, okay? I don't even know what the hell the actual definition is. If you look up habit, I don't even know what it is. My definition is it's a repeated action daily that creates a consistency in our lives. One of the biggest human needs is we want consistency. We want to feel like we're consistent. So who I think I am and how I act in the world, the more consistent it is, the better I feel. And this doesn't have to mean like positive or negative. It's just neutral. But one of the biggest human needs is we like to have a consistent dialogue with ourselves and a consistent inner and outer dialogue. So if I think about myself in a certain way and I act upon that, fairly consistently, I'm gonna feel pretty good about that scenario, right? Whenever I act out of consistency, or if I act out of character, out of behavior from how I view myself, not how anybody else views me, but how I view myself, then it may cause a discomfort. Now, obviously, the first thing that we think of when we say that is we think of someone who does something negative, right? So they do something negative. It goes against their moral compass, their ethics, and they have a discomfort. That is one thing. That is one way that people do feel that cognitive dissonance. That is one aspect. But there's another aspect in the positive way. Oftentimes when we're achieving goals and we're reaching for growth, we have a set pattern and a belief system on who we are, call it a comfort zone. And when we take action outside of that comfort zone, we experience cognitive dissonance. We feel this pressure. We feel this discomfort because we're doing something that's out of our current norm. So for example, let's look at the positive. If you're used to making 20 phone calls a day, and that is basically your set comfort zone, your set core temperature, and all of a sudden for the next 2 or 3 days, you start bumping it up to 50 or 60 calls, you're probably going to feel a discomfort because it's not a set pattern, a normal habit that you're used to. Also, if you're used to going after clients that are, $2,000 or $3,000 clients, and then you go after a client that's $10,000 client, there might be a discomfort there because you're breaking away from your current pattern, your unconscious set image of who you are and what you're supposed to be doing. So this can go, how it doesn't matter what moral compass you look at. If you do something out of character that's negative, you're probably going to feel discomfort. If you do something positive out of character, you're probably going to feel discomfort. So I'm saying all this so we have a set foundation when we go into habit stacking and how we can utilize habit stacking. Now, the first thing is we identified that 90% of our behavior, or 90% of our day is ruled by our unconscious mind, which is nothing but patterns and habits. The second thing we identified is whenever we step out of our current pattern or current habit, whether it be positive, whether it be negative, there's going to be a feeling of discomfort. Psychology, I believe, I'm not an expert, but from what I gathered, I'm just a messenger. It's called cognitive dissonance. Basically, it's your internal and external world are not matched up. And when that happens, it causes stress, right, in your brain. Okay. So we have identified those two things. Now let's actually get into the nuggets of how we can utilize habit stacking. From what I gathered, habits have brothers and sisters. And what do I mean by that? Brothers and sisters. Each thing that you do consistently every day, if it's actually in habit, it has other actions and thoughts and feelings and emotions that are similar to that habit. So for example, if a habit that you have is you exercise every single day, most likely, you're going to have a nutrition pattern, a nutrition habit that's going to correspond with that exercise habit. Most likely you're going to eat a healthy and balanced nutrition on a daily basis. It just works synergistically. It works together. Vice versa. If you started your habit with eating clean, most likely you're going to implement exercise because those kind of go together. They're similar vibrations, similar frequencies, similar activity, similar way of life, right? Oftentimes, if you look at it from a negative standpoint, and when I say negative, this is not a moral. I'm not coming from a moral place. I'm coming from just a place of the overall result of your health or your well-being. So let's look at cigarette smoking. So as someone, oftentimes, if you see someone who doesn't really smoke cigarettes, but when they go out and they're at the bar and they have a few beers or they have a few drinks, they start smoking cigarettes. But their everyday life, they don't do that, right? It's because for whatever reason, they connected drinking and smoking together, married as their brother and sister, right? So I'm just trying to make a point that one habit unconsciously has other similar habits that connect to it. Okay. So why do we want to know that? We want to know that because if we can start identifying one or two anchor key habits in our lives that could be a cornerstone for us, it will automatically stimulate other activities and other behaviors and other thoughts and emotions and feelings and thought processes that are going to correspond to that one habit to help us be able to actualize more consistency in our lives. Because us as human beings, we want to have a consistent inner and outer life. That's just how we are. Let's use fitness as an example because it's an easy example. So if you start working out every day and you set that as your first habit and you're exercising 5-6 days a week, maybe even 7, whatever it is, you're going to the gym, you're going to naturally start looking into eating healthier as a viable, not only a viable option, but just a viable way of living because it easily connects with the exercise habit. If you look at business and economics and finances, and you're a salesperson, and if you make a habit of reaching out to 20 to 30 people every single day to pitch your product, service, or investors or whatever it may be, that's going to naturally correspond to better follow-ups or better attention to detail on your contracts or better attention to your top line revenue as a business, more focus and attention on expansion and marketing, because they kind of go hand in hand. There's a correspondence. Usually whenever we activate one habit, it's going to stimulate other things that are going to make us better. So I like to focus on one cornerstone habit at a time. So if you're a business person, one cornerstone habit could be reviewing your top line revenue, every other day, right? So if you sit down every other day and you say, okay, what is our projected top line revenue for the next 7 or 14 days? And you do that consistently, your mind and brain they're just going to start shifting and start focusing on other activities that are going to support increasing your top line revenue. This happens unconsciously. So it's not something that we necessarily do consciously, but throughout your day, now you're going to be more focused on sales, opportunities, ways of bringing more money to the company, ways to maximize your current resources, ways of maximizing your current deals, getting deals closed faster, etc. So focusing on one cornerstone habit is going to stimulate other brothers and sisters that think just like that one. Okay. This is a very powerful concept. And if you can adopt this in your life, you're going to see massive results and how you can shift your life big time. Another one that I've actually implemented in my life is, at first it was reading books. So I became an avid reader around 2015 or 14. I can't remember the exact year, but around that time in my life, I became an avid reader. And the more I read, the more I yearned for mental expansion. Okay. So now the books that I was reading, it made me more aware and more conscious of maybe certain YouTube information or certain articles I can read, right? So if I was reading on personal development, then I was naturally already attracting other things that corresponded. I started meeting people that thought the same way. I would be at Barnes and Noble and somehow I would spark up a conversation with another guy who's reading Think and Grow Rich and I'm reading Think and Grow Rich, or someone that read Rich Dad Poor Dad or whatever. It's crazy how this works. But when you start something and you're consistent, you just tend to start attracting other things that are very similar to that vibration, similar to that habit. Okay. So if you start reading every single day and you create that as a habit, it's going to start naturally, unconsciously creating other opportunities and other thoughts and behaviors that are going to lead to mental expansion and mental focus. That's just the way it is. You can't help it. It's literally, you cannot help it. For me, I like audiobooks, right? So now I have a daily habit of listening to audiobooks, whether I'm working out or I'm in the car or whatever. That naturally leads to other things for me, better clarity. It leads for me to have clearer thinking. It leads for me to think more creatively. It leads for me to, see things that I wasn't maybe seeing before, having different thoughts, different ideas, different actions, different behaviors, right? So guys, 90% of our life is ruled by our unconscious, and our unconscious, like we said from the beginning, is nothing more than patterns and habits. Patterns and habits, that's all it is. So if we can consciously create new patterns and new habits into our life, we literally can recreate ourselves and redefine ourselves however we like. We're not stuck in a certain situation. Now, that being said, because we're all humans, and I'm definitely human, and I understand the discomfort and the stress that comes with growth, personal growth, and it's very challenging. And what I have noticed is whenever you try to recreate yourself, the best way to do it from my experience is to create it and do it small. One habit at a time. You don't want to overload yourself and stimulate yourself with too many habits, too many things you're trying to implement in your life. It's going to be too much. If the action step for this podcast is pick one habit, just one, whether it's meditation in the morning, writing in your journal, praying, meditating, making sales calls, working out every day, eating correctly, doing sales training with your team, whatever the habit is, pick the one habit and just start implementing it every single day and start there. Don't even think about anything. Don't even try to figure out what other habit I'm going to do. Just pick the first one. Just pick that one. And guys, the action plan is to start implementing it tomorrow, right now. So whatever it is, the action plan for this podcast is to identify one habit that's going to allow you to grow into the person that you're trying to get to. Because if you can envision who you are and who you think you could be or who you should be, that means you are that person. Now it's just actualizing that person into life, into reality. So action plan, pick one habit that's going to correspond to what that higher ideal of you, that better version of you does, and start taking action and start doing it right now. Right now, right now, right now, right now. And commit to it. Just commit to it. Do that for 30, 45 days and then add another habit. Start stacking habits. Start stacking habits. The more you start stacking habits, the more you can recreate your whole persona in a good way, in a positive way. You're always going to be you, but you're going to be a better version of you, a maximized version of you. That's what this whole podcast is about, is maximizing ourselves in career, confidence, and achievement. So habit stacking will help you in your confidence because you're going to have more congruency on who you are inside and who you are outside. You're going to have a better career because a habit is something that's an action. And when you take action, results happen. So you're going to have more success externally in your external world. And you're going to achieve more, which is results, right? Because the habits are going to help you correspond to other habits to help you get results. You're going to start building a better momentum in your life and a better system in your life to help you get to where you want to be. So guys, I know this podcast, I get straight into it. That's my style. There's not going to be a lot of fluff. There's not going to be a lot of just, back and forth stuff. I really want to bring as much value as I can. Everything that I talk about on this podcast, it is something that I have done or am doing. And most of the time it's both. So this is literally from my own experience. This is not coming from a book, theory, philosophy, maybe, sort of, kind of. I'm saying this from my own journey, from my own experience. And what I love about this podcast is everything that is said in this podcast, as far as action that you can take, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. This is not, you're not going to have to go code data, make a new app, go to the moon, figure out how to go to Mars. This is all down to earth, practical action you can take right now. And every single person on this planet, if they listen to this podcast, can do every action that we talk about. And if I recommend an action, I promise you, I'm doing it myself and I'm practicing it in my day-to-day life. And I'm seeing the effect and the results. And that's what inspires me to do this. So when I do these podcasts, it's always inspired about what I'm actually doing right now, currently in my life. And it inspires me and makes me want to talk about it and share it with others. So guys, habit stacking. Go pick that one habit right now that corresponds to the best version of who you are and start taking action on that right now. All right, guys, I hope you love this podcast. I hope you got value from this. Please subscribe to my podcast, The Underdog's Edge. This is episode number 7. Guys, I'm going to do this podcast forever. This is never going to stop. I'm going to have thousands and thousands of episodes, and I can't wait to go back in time whenever I get to that point, man, and say, wow, look how far I've come. I'm starting from a very humble place. I'm here in my office in Houston, Texas. And I'm excited to do it. And my heart is very just grateful to be able to do this podcast. And I hope that if you listen to this, it inspired you, it made you more motivated, it made you more positive, and it made you think about how you can better yourself in the way that's right for you. That's my whole goal. All right, guys, go out there, crush it, and start habit stacking.